All right, Pesach preparation seminar. This is our fourth or fifth year of doing this. I don't remember exactly, but Hashem should let us, that all the halachot that we share tonight will be to help us have a more meaningful Pesach, and they should all be in accordance with halakha, and shelo tetzeh takala mitachat yadenu. There should be no mistakes that come out from under our hands.
Amen.
Pesach is a very interesting holiday, and there's an interesting. There's a double standard that Jewish people have. On one hand, we're supposed to be free and celebrate freedom on Pesach. And on the other hand, we're very much obsessed with ridding our homes, our lives of chametz, both spiritual and physical chametz. And we've sometimes reached a point where the desire to rid ourselves of chametz makes us lose a little bit of the freedom that we should be having. And the hope is to bring a little bit more peace into that struggle, into that tug of war game. And that's why the name of our book is Yehi Shalom. There should be peace, the peace in the world. The family should have peace over Pesach. It shouldn't be a sad and difficult holiday. Pesach is not difficult. That's the premise of this entire class. It is a very easy Jewish holiday. It just happens to have more laws than other holidays. That's it. Shabbat is more complicated than Pesach. Kosher during the year is more complicated than Pesach. Pesach, it's not so difficult. I want to share with you a story. I believe the story is about Rabbi Yonatan Halevy of Berdichev, but don't hold it against me if I'm wrong. Rabbi Yonatan Halevy of Berdichev was once asked by someone an interesting question, and he responded by telling them the following story. He said, the Tsar, he forbids all kinds of products. He said, you go run around people's homes and their basements, and you'll see they all have these products. There are bans on alcohol, bans on cigarettes, everybody has it, and there are even people who sell it, and there's a black market for these things. But look, everybody has it. At the end of the day, it's just a matter of how well they hide it. This is on Pesach, chametz. He said, go down to the town of the Jews and go look in someone's house and see if they have chametz in their possession. Nobody has chametz in their possession. He said, and that means that the Jewish people, even though there's no king that's going to come and put them in prison, there's no police officers that are running around, we've taken this holiday so seriously that illegal contraband, maybe, but chametz, never. I'm not saying that's the right attitude in life, but it tells us the Jewish people have taken chametz very seriously. You might think that because I'm Sephardic, I come from a long line of being very lenient in Pesach traditions. The answer is it's not true. And it's not just because my parents were raised in Ashkenazi institutions, and therefore their laws of Pesach were very strict. That's not why. My grandmother, Aleh Shalom, my father's mother, had a custom on Pesach that she would make the children in the house sand down, listen very carefully, sand down the chairs in the dining room table. One layer lower. Every year, one layer, so there shouldn't be any chametz in their house. That was my father's job, to sand the chairs. I'm sure that's not part of your Pesach preparation, because you don't have to sand your chairs or tables. But clearly my grandmother took chametz very seriously. Very often we're allowed to have rice on Pesach. People say you have to check it 3 times. The truth is you do have to check your rice. Maybe not today, but in the olden days, rice, it was in the same buckets as all kinds of other grains, and you have to really check these things. And so my grandmother used to pay my father and his brother. Every time they found something in the rice that wasn't rice, she would give them a coin. She would give it as an incentive to check the rice. And so they always wanted to find something that wasn't rice, and that's how she made sure that her rice didn't have any other grains inside of it for Pesach. Pesach is this balance of strictness with chametz, and on the other hand, also making sure that we live a certain level of freedom on Pesach. And I want to tell you that the point of today's class, I'm not going to delve into the spiritual side of Pesach. It's not for today. I'll be giving other classes throughout Pesach about that. Today is practically what do I need to know for making my house kosher for Pesach, what kind of things can I buy on Pesach, and in order to understand that, I think that we should focus a little bit on halakha. What are the real issues that Pesach brings up? And so let's start at the beginning. You are not allowed to have chametz inside of your home. Chametz, any of the 5 grains that have been touched by water. General grains are not chametz. The problem is that we're not sure if throughout the process of getting those grains to our table, did they actually maybe touch water in a factory, and maybe they were in a refrigerator with some condensation. We're careful with these grains, but in general, chametz is anything that has the ability to lehachmitz, to become actual chametz. And Hashem says that you cannot have chametz inside of your house. You can't even own it. It can't even be in your possession. Bal yira'eh uval yimatzeh. This is not like a pig. A pig steak you could have in your refrigerator. There's nothing you could do with it. But you can have it if you wanted to. Chametz, you cannot have it and you cannot see it. I was once in a home, and they already took it to a whole new level. But every they'd have like pictures in the newspaper, and they had like donuts in the pictures. They would cut out the pictures of the donuts. Until there, you don't have to go with your chametz cleaning. But the truth is that there is this idea not just not to own chametz, but not to have it anywhere that you can see it. It has to be away from you. It's for that reason that we do a few things. The first is we check our homes for chametz. We clean it out of chametz. We get rid of our chametz. The night before Pesach, we search for the chametz. If your house is spick span clean before Pesach, you are not allowed to make the blessing on searching for chametz the night before Pesach. If you know for a fact that you have no chametz in your home, it's not you checked. You already been 2 weeks cleaning your house for Pesach. You have to make sure to leave one small area of your home that you did not clean for Pesach. It doesn't have to be the whole house. No, one place that you didn't check, that you don't know if there's chametz there, then that's where you check your chametz.
I did the sprinkle 10 pieces around.
Sprinkling the 10 pieces around is not going to help you with, because you know where they are.
I'm right.
So that's not a matter of checking. We do it, but it's not enough to make you say a bracha. I know there are rabbis who disagree with this, but this is the psak halacha that fits in with the Shulchan Aruch and with the sages of halacha. Make sure it's not a joke, it's not a game with the Kodesh Baruch. If your house is already clean, so you already checked it. So what are you making a blessing for? If you want to fulfill the mitzvah of checking the night before, so make sure you leave. It's not so hard. Make sure you leave an area of your house that you didn't yet check for Pesach. What else do we do the next day? We do bitul chametz. We nullify the chametz, meaning all the chametz is in my possession that I do not know about. You can say this in any language. This is not a Kabbalistic prayer. This is not a spiritual prayer. You can say this in English if you understand English. You get rid of all the chametz that is in your possession through a process of verbal nullification. This is called bitul chametz. You have bi'ur chametz, where you burn the chametz. We're doing that in my house. Everyone's welcome to join us there. Bi'ur chametz, we actually physically burn the chametz. And last but not least, what else do we do with chametz? Some of you?
Sell it.
You sell it.
Oh,
Very
sell
good.
it, yes.
Sell it.
Yeah,
Sell it. If you want to sell your chametz, please go online and sell your chametz. I'll be selling it for you this year at Pesach time. The idea is that I'm not allowed to have chametz in my possession. I can't. But if I sell it to a non-Jew, then he owns the chametz for Pesach, and it's really his chametz. You have to understand that this custom is a loophole at its best. It's a loophole. Meaning the chametz, where is it? Where is it?
It's in your house still.
It's in your house. Can you get to it if you wanted to?
Yes.
Yes. If that guy comes to your house in the middle of the night, you're going to be angry at him?
Yeah.
Yes. So is it really sold?
No.
So then you should be very careful with this custom. There was a community in Neve Yaakov in Jerusalem, and they came up with an interesting idea. Instead of keeping the chametz in their home, they rented a huge trailer, like from a truck, and they put it in the middle of the neighborhood. And every neighbor bought like a shelf in this place, and they put there, and they sold the trailer to a non-Jew. And they locked it with a key, and it was sitting outside of their homes. One of the days of Chol HaMoed, in the middle of the holiday, the non-Jew shows up with his truck, and he latches on the trailer, and he just drives away with their chametz. And you should see these people running out there, screaming, hey, where are you going with our food? Who are you? I said, no, you sold it to me. I said, no, well, we're going to buy it back from you after Pesach. He said, wait a second. I said, your chametz or is it my chametz? Make up your mind. Because if I can't drive away with it, then it's not yours. Then it's not mine, it's yours. And the truth is that that's probably how most people feel about their chametz. So when you sell your chametz, make sure you really sell it. If somebody were to come to your house, it's something I don't want it. And therefore, there's a custom that many people, I encourage this custom. I don't normally encourage stringencies, but I encourage this custom. Not to sell chametz for Pesach. What do I mean not to sell chametz? Sell the things that you're not going to use for Pesach. But things that are real chametz, you have real cookies, cakes, bread in your house, finish it before Pesach. Give it to a homeless person before Pesach. Why do you want to get into a situation where you're selling your chametz? It's not really sold. It was done over the internet. There's some guy, he doesn't even know where you live. The whole thing. Take this mitzvah a little seriously. You have time. You have 2 weeks. Eat a lot of chametz. Get rid of a lot of chametz. So for some of you, this will be easier. For some, it will be harder. I'll tell you the only time that I really suggest people can hold on to chametz is if you tell me you're going to keep the laws of Yeshan, which I'm going to tell you about later. And if you know that in order to keep the laws of Yashan after Pesach, you have to stock up before Pesach,
Yeah.
I let you do. I let. I let. But just like that, why do you want to hold on to a box of cookies? It costs you $2. Get rid of them. But you can. The answer is you can say chametz, and the fact is that I do it for you. I'm just sharing with you that it's a loophole, and we're so strict about other things that this loophole is just. They say there was once a guy was getting more serious about his spiritual path, and he joined a Reform congregation. And he tells his rabbi, I smoke, but I heard that you're not supposed to smoke according to Jewish law. I said, well, that's great. See, in Reform tradition, you can do whatever you want. It's okay. I said, that's not a real answer. I don't like that answer. So he went to the conservative rabbi. And the conservative rabbi said, the beauty of conservative tradition is you do it at your own pace. When you're ready to give up smoking, you'll give up smoking. And until then, you do whatever you want to do. I said, okay, it's better, but I don't like that answer. So he went to the Orthodox rabbi. The Orthodox rabbi said, no way in the world you can smoke. We don't let anybody smoke. I said, but Rabbi, I really need to smoke, so I can't help you. I said, you know what? What's your name? Give me your address. I'm going to sell your lungs to a non-Jew. This is what selling chametz on Pesach sounds like. I'm going to smoke, but I'm going to sell my lungs to somebody else. It's a game. I'm encouraging you, let's not play games on Pesach. Let's have a little more dignity than that. But again, if you're going to lose a lot of money because of it, if it's a significant amount of chametz you don't want to waste, I understand that. I respect that. You could sell your chametz. That's why that loophole exists. It's to save people their money. Someone has a grocery store, someone owns a restaurant, someone who has a huge garage full of food, all kinds of people. Okay, so there's the rabbis gave room for that. Okay?
Is flour considered chametz or not?
It's a great question. Flour is technically not chametz. It's also not the kind of thing you want to take out of your refrigerator on Pesach.
No. I mean, but just not.
Okay, I have a lot of flour that I sell on Pesach. And barley and grains because I keep Yashan and I need to make sure that I stock up on these things.
That's why I have so
Okay.
much. Oh.
All right, so that's the preparation for Pesach part.
Can I ask you one question?
Yes.
If you leave a corner that you didn't check and that you do that in Pesach, do you still put those 10 pieces of?
Yeah, these 10 things are a Jewish custom. Some say they even have some. Listen, there are two sides. Some Kabbalists say this whole thing is a joke.
Oh.
From what I understand, the Arizal thought this was a very humorous thing that people did such a silly thing. He thought it was pretty silly. But there are other Kabbalists that swear that 10 is a big number, sfirot, all kinds of. So you do whatever you do. In my house, we hide the chametz, little pieces. Just don't make a whole religion out of it. That's the idea. The search for chametz is not for the 10 pieces where you know where you put them. The search for chametz is for the stuff you didn't know. That stuff is just to encourage you to look other places.
And what about the feather?
Very good. So the feather, the candle, all of these things, you don't need a feather. You don't need a candle. You have to understand that people didn't live in the kind of homes that we live in. They lived in a little shack, and the shack had cracks between the bricks. The floor was dirt. You needed to get in between those cracks because maybe your kid shoved the cookie in there, and you want to get the stuff out of the crack. You had candles. Why a candle? Do you know?
You didn't have a flashlight.
You didn't have a flashlight. You didn't have light because it was dark outside. You have to do this at night. And torches. People were afraid they were going to burn their houses down like a bright torch. So they had to use a candle. The Kabbalists jumped on this train, and all kind of candle, a beeswax candle, there's a lot of Kabbalah behind this. Okay, I respect it. Fine, you want to use a candle, do it. But if you want to be intellectually honest, not on a spiritual level, on a halakhic level. On a halakhic level, the truth is that you're going to see much more with a flashlight than you will with, I'll tell you what I do. I turn on the lights in my house. And everyone else turns off the lights, and they bring a candle out. I put on all the lights that I can have. How else am I going to see the chametz? This Al-Hanan became very smart this year. I found in the fireplace that he has a little stash of things.
Oh.
And we don't use the fireplace, Baruch Hashem. If not, we would have a... but one day I see him coming out of the fireplace. Where did that come from? And we see, and there's like chicken skewer in there, and there's some toys in there that I didn't know what happened to, and all kinds of nice little things. So that kind of situation, I need more than just a little candle to find those things.
Right.
So make sure that it's real. And it's important that when you do b'dikat chametz, that you really do it with a certain, it's going to be a game. It's real. You're looking for chametz, and perhaps I'm going to stick out just a spiritual comment. You're not just looking for the chametz that's outside of you. You're looking for a little bit of the chametz that's inside of you. It's the night before Pesach. One more, 24 hours from now, you'll be sitting at a seder with the King of Kings. The Zohar says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sitting at our Pesach seder. I cannot say how important that is. It's the only time HaKadosh Baruch Hu is, I'm there with you. And you need to prepare yourself. And you don't just walk into the king's palace, with your t-shirt. You come in, you cleanse yourself inside, you cleanse yourself outside. You make sure that you want to clean out all the ego and all the anger and all the thing that What do you say? Schmutz insurance. All the schmutz that your insurance doesn't cover. You want to get rid of it from inside of you to make sure you come as a pure person. It's for that reason that on the night of the Seder, many people have accustomed to wear white. Ashkenazi Jews wear kittel, which is the burial garments that we are buried in. Some Sephardic Jews wear talitot. Some wear white robes. I have a combination of those customs, but I encourage you, treat the night of Pesach as the happy version of Yom Kippur, meaning it's a feast, it's a meal, but it's really, really, really holy. It's a holy night. Try, wear something white. Make purity. That's the whole idea here. I'm just looking at my list of topics that I wrote down to speak about. So let's talk about a very good question. And the question is, can one become Sephardic? I get asked this question every year. I tell them that the rates go up right before Pesach.
Right.
So yes, we do conversions, but you have to pay a premium now. You won't have to do it in Elul when we say Slichot. There you have to wake up for 40 days. But here we charge more. The truth is that it's not so black and white. What is Sephardic? What is Ashkenazi? I want to explain to you. What are the differences between Sephardim and Ashkenazim on Pesach? Rice and beans, kitniot, which is rice and beans, and corn. What else is different between Sephardim and Ashkenazim on Pesach?
You can eat so many more things
Why?
because they're not prohibited.
Well, isn't it because of the location of where people lived?
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. I mean, that explains a lot of our differences, maybe also on an ethnic and cultural level.
Right.
Let me talk to you about halakhic differences. You mentioned to me one so far. In my book, I brought down 13 differences, just in the laws of Pesach. I want to skim through the ones that are relevant to us. Right? The first and foremost is the one that really makes a difference to our community, and that is, the first one is called Chametz Shene'or. Listen to what I'm telling you. It's called Chametz that reawakens. Chozer v'ne'or, it says. I'll tell you what I mean. According to Halacha, if you have a pig that falls into your chicken soup, and there are 16 times more chicken soup than there is than the pig, is the soup kosher?
Yes.
Absolutely, right? Of course. The question is, what happens tomorrow when you heat it up? Is that pig like waking up again? He fell into the soup again. Meaning, you drank 6 bowls of soup last night. Now you're left only with 54 bowls. It's a real problem, is it? And so we hold that these things. It's not chozer v'ne'or. It doesn't reawaken. Meaning, once it was nullified, it was nullified. We know that chametz has an interesting property. It is not nullified even in
60.
Even in 1,000. It's not nullified. Meaning, if you have 1 crumb of chametz, 1 crumb that falls into your soup on Pesach, even 1,000 times more soup than the crumb will not nullify it. So tell me what you don't know about this halakha. This only begins when?
When Pesach starts.
When Pesach begins. But if this happens before Pesach, meaning if the crumb fell into your soup the day before Pesach.
Why? Why is it?
Oh, very good.
Because you're going to eat it.
This
on
goes
Pesach.
into the category. Chametz is it's an interesting category in halakha. Pig, it's always not allowed. The things that are always not allowed, we treat them, listen, you have no choice, you got to nullify them. But chametz, you're going to be able to eat this in 7 days, in 8 days. Why do I have to nullify it now? It's called some davar sheyesh lo matirin. It has a time where it will be permitted for you, and therefore it's a stricter category. And so chametz will be permitted for you in 8 days. So what? So you're not going to have bread today. Big deal. You'll have it Motzei Pesach. Our rabbis treat it with a different level of severity. Also, chametz is an isur karet. It's a spiritual excommunication. The Torah tells us a person who eats chametz. And so we treat chametz with a much higher level of prohibition than pig. It's worse to eat chametz on Pesach.
So if 1 crumb falls into soup and you're making it for Passover, so you nullify it in 60 because it's before Pesach.
Yes.
Can you eat it on Pesach?
Absolutely.
But you said that it's such
Because
a
it
terrible thing to.
Doesn't reawaken?
Because it doesn't reawaken. Very good. And that's what Rabbi Yosef Cairo says. The Rama says, listen, I know, but at the end of the day, chametz reawakens. He holds that maybe it is chozer v'ne'or. And therefore, Maran has a very interesting halakha. Maran says that if it was nullified before, it's okay. And the Rama says, no, you have to know that it is able to be reawakened, and therefore, he has a problem, and he holds that if something was nullified in 60 before Pesach, it could really come back and bite you, so to speak, on Pesach, and you have to be careful from anything that has even a little bit of chametz inside it, which Sfaradim are not particular about.
mean, what does nullify it really mean? If you nullify it the day before, but you can't nullify the exact same thing the day after, what's nullification really mean?
How could you eat a sandwich this year on Thursday, but on Saturday you can't?
You can eat a sandwich on Saturday.
No, because it's ready to be Pesach. Things change. The days of the week make a difference. The Pesach already started.
But
Chametz is not a prohibited item on the Thursday before Pesach. And therefore we don't treat it. Why should it be prohibited?
So what changed a little piece of chametz on the day before Pesach?
That on these 8 days of Pesach, outside of Israel, Hashem says you cannot have even a crumb of chametz.
But you do, because if you have this...
Before that, now it's already gone. Halachically, it disappeared. 3 days before Pesach. I'll tell you where a practical example of this situation happened. We had an yeshiva, I was sitting by Rabbi Peretz, and there was a rabbi who just became, maybe 3 days before Pesach, he became a chief rabbi of a city in Spain. It was a great time to appoint him to a new position. He comes in, and they have a kitchen at the synagogue, but they have nothing kosher for Pesach there. Meaning, they have ingredients, they have this, but none of the kitchen is not kosher for Pesach. They don't have new pots and pans. He didn't know what to do. Listen to what Peretz told him. He said, use the pots and pans that are chametz pots and pans. Use them and cook all of your food before Pesach. And then refrigerate certain things, freeze the other things that you can freeze, and serve them throughout Pesach, because so long as it has been nullified before Pesach, you can eat it on Pesach. And you know what? The rabbi did it, and he was able to sleep with a good conscience on it. Because that's the way halakha works. And that's why if you open up the Shulchan Aruch, you open up Rabbi Yvadia Yosef and his Chazon Avadia, he says that if you go to a non-Jewish marketplace, and they're selling, it's a Jewish place. Let's say you go to Shuk Machane Yehuda, the Machane Yehuda Shuk in Jerusalem, and you see there's a jelly, they sell jams and all kinds of fruit preserves, and you know they're making it in chametz containers. The pot that he's using is not for Pesach. You're allowed to buy that jam as long as it was cooked before Pesach, because the chametz is not the ingredient. It's not one of the ingredients. It's just nullified in the jelly, and you can eat that on Pesach. According to Sfaradim and according to Ashkenazim, you can't. Which leads us to the second difference, and that difference is very important. Maran says that fish. Yes, Maran says that fish, meat, cheese, all of these things that during the year are kosher for Pesach. During the year they're kosher, and you know that they don't have chametz. What does your steak that you bought at Ralph's have inside of it? That's chametz. It doesn't have chametz. But it could be that it was on the counter and the guy was eating his sandwich, or I don't know, there was a breadcrumb container. It could be there is a piece of chametz. I don't know. Maran says so long as you don't know that there is chametz inside of something, meaning it doesn't. There's no reason to assume you can eat it on Pesach. And the Ramah says no, unless you know for certain that this is kosher for Passover, you cannot have it on Pesach.
So that kind of means that you can't even really buy produce after Pesach starts.
Oh, there are some Ashkenazim who have this tendency.
Mm-hmm.
There are some Hasidim, for example,
The
that they
eggs
stock
also.
up all their tomatoes and cucumbers.
That's right.
Everything.
And
They have
eggs.
whole storage rooms full of things
Eggs
because
and
they don't go
milk.
shopping on Pesach.
We never went shopping on Pesach.
Okay, so you see,
We
Yeah.
never went shopping on Pesach.
but for
For the whole
Sfaradim,
week?
for the whole week.
for Sfaradim, this whole concept is
Fruits,
null and void. Meaning we
vegetables,
are able to buy anything, and this makes a big difference. You should know. The difference here is, if someone asks, "Hey, Rabbi, can I have this on Pesach?" I'll say, "What are the ingredients?" "Oh, it has no chametz." Go for it. How do I know? Maybe in the factory, maybe on the conveyor belt, maybe. Maran, Rabbi Yosef Cairo says, maybe that's not enough to prohibit something on Pesach. The only time you can prohibit something on Pesach is if you are certain there's chametz in there. And the Ramah says, no, man, it's the other way around. Unless you know for certain that it's kosher for Pesach, you cannot have it on Pesach. Maybe is enough of a reason to invalidate something. And that would explain why in the Sephardic community there's a lot more that you can eat. Forget rice and beans. But all the things that are kosher for Pesach that we can buy. The Ramah, Rabbi Yoshua Gerstein, Rabbi Josh, who was my chavruta, on his notes in my book, I bring them down in a footnote, he says that it's true. The Ramah writes that if you take that piece of meat and you wash it 3 times, you could have it on Pesach. I mean, so long as you can rid it of any chametz residue that maybe could have been there, the Ramah doesn't hold that it's actually chametz. He just says that you might assume that there's chametz, and so if you clean it well, you're more than welcome to buy. And that's why fish, chicken, cheeses, all these things, you can buy them wherever you want, as long as they're kosher during the year. And if you're Ashkenazi, the only stringency you should have then is to wash the chicken or meat or fish beforehand.
So can you make lasagna the day before and eat it later?
That I haven't found a way to do that yet.
If you buy eggs, you buy them before Pesach. But sometimes eggs have little blood spots, if you like. But also, sometimes they have like little pieces of grain in them. The grain, well, it looks like grain because it's not.
Where are you buying eggs?
In your egg?
Farmer's market.
Inside of your egg?
Inside the egg.
You mean when you crack the egg?
Yes, you open it.
And inside there's a grain?
Well, there's something there that it's not. It's like the color of a.
Oh, that's just part
like
of the
a-
embryo.
No, it's a separate little particle.
I've never in my life seen such a thing in
Yeah,
my egg.
but it's part of the embryo. I don't think it's a.
Oh, it's
Really?
it's like a
It's like-
gooey white part.
No.
No, it's like
no,
a little.
it's a color of like sawdust almost.
Yeah,
like,
it's like a
dark,
little dark thing. Mhm.
Yeah, and it's
The beginning
not.
of your chicken.
I've never seen
Yeah,
that.
Are you
it's.
serious?
Yeah, I've seen them.
No.
I've seen it.
I've never
Yeah.
seen this. I can't help you
It
with
looks like a little grain.
I doubt
not
there's
grain.
any grains
It's
inside
not
of an
grain.
egg.
Yeah, I think it's part of the embryo. It just
Now,
hasn't.
there's something else.
They're not fertilized.
There's something else that we should know, aside from the famous kitniot, which Sfaradim allow and Ashkenazim don't, and I'll get to in a minute. Have you heard of matzah ashira?
Yeah. I forget what it is.
Literally rich matzah.
Sounds good.
Matzah has to be made with flour and water and nothing else. And the moment that water touches the flour, you have, well, not exactly, you have a while, 18 minutes until it becomes chametz.
Right.
You should know that 18 minutes can last much longer than 18 minutes. Do you know that? So long as someone is still kneading the dough. Imagine this, the Talmud says you're standing outside, you're waiting for the oven to be free, but some lady made it to the communal oven before you did. And you're waiting for her to finish baking her matzot. You're going to have to throw out your dough. It says, as long as you keep kneading the dough, it doesn't become chametz. An hour, even in the sun.
Oh, I thought it was from beginning to end. They had to be 18 minutes.
Yes, if you're not touching the, which is why the matzah factories, the throwaway, they throw away thousands of pounds of matzah because it passed 15 minutes or 6. You got too close to the 18-minute mark. It's because these people are illiterate in halachot, and they waste a lot of Jewish money because of that. It's a mistake. Harav Peretz, there's a certain matzah factory. I won't lie to you. Where he goes to, and all the matzah they throw away, he takes for his seder. Because they're so strict on the laws of Pesach that at 12 minutes they cut off the time of matzah.
Oh my gosh.
And so he has a good 6 minutes to go. He watches how they make the matzot and he takes them home. Let's talk about matzah shira. According to Maran, this is based on the Gemara in Masechet Pesachim. If you use pure fruit juice, apple juice, orange juice, pure juice, not one drop of water can be that juice. So you have to literally squeeze the orange yourself or press the apple yourself. You can mix it in with your flour and make cookies out of it and cakes out of it and all kinds of things. And there's not chametz. According to the Ramah, fruit juice is just as bad as water, and you have to treat it the same way. In fact, the Ramah says even worse. The Ramah says that fruit juice makes things chametz faster than water, and it's for that reason that Ashkenazim don't have flour with anything aside from water. Meaning, if you ever see egg matzah, you'll see in the kosher symbol, it'll say, only for sick people, according to the Ashkenazi tradition. The reason for that is, Sfaradim, we say, great, you can have egg matzah. Eggs don't make the matzah chametz. But Ashkenazim hold that it will make it worse chametz than water, and therefore it's an argument in reality. And you should know the reality is not like the Ashkenazim. According to halakha, water makes something chametz, fruit juice does not. There's a stringency that exists in Ashkenazim. For that reason, that most chocolate-covered matzot will say on them, not good for Ashkenazim, only good for either Sfaradim or elderly and sick people. Which one, like, what's the
I'm
sick person
elderly,
doing?
so I
anything?
can have
Oh,
that.
okay, see?
Oh, you're not.
Where does it make a
Officially, I
practical
am.
difference?
Is it because it's
You-
made out of matzah shira?
Yeah, you will find cookies.
Chocolate.
You will find cookies that are kosher for Pesach. That'll say on the label. They'll say on the label, according to the ruling of Rabbi Yonatan Halevy, these cookies are made with flour and wine, and sugar and all kinds of things. They're real cookies, not matzah meal cookies. Flour, wine, and sugar. And Rabbi Yonatan Halevy allowed these cookies to be eaten on Pesach, but obviously the Ashkenazi rabbis wouldn't agree, and they're correct. According to Ashkenazi tradition, this is not something you can eat. Even Harav Peretz is stringent not to eat these cookies because he doesn't trust that in the factories these workers really care not to bring in one drop of water in with them. It's a very strict thing. You're not dealing with customs. You're dealing here with the biblical prohibition of chametz, and therefore when we stay away from anything that might be chametz.
What kind of flour would they use? If it's going to use matzah, what kind of flour do they use?
Flour, real flour.
But you can't do that on
I'm telling you that you can. According to Rabbi Yosef Karo. Now perhaps another significant section, and this is not so much a difference in Sfaradim and Ashkenazim as much as Sfaradim and Ashkenazim on one hand and Hasidim on the other hand. This is called Gebraks. Have you heard of Gebraks? To Gebrakt or not to Gebrakt? Gebrak literally means?
Wet.
In Hebrew they say shluya. It's soaked matzah.
So,
Soaked matzah, meaning some Hasidic rabbis were of the opinion that if you take matzah, there might be some residual flour left or a pocket of flour left inside of the matzah. And now you dipped it into your soup on Pesach, and there was some flour that came in contact with water, automatically that became chametz, and now you're in big problems. And therefore they said you cannot dip your matzah in water. Later, some Hasidim added you cannot dip your matzah into any liquids, and then anything wet, and you don't. And so matzah, some people even have this thing: they eat matzah over a plastic bag, and then throw away the crumbs, and the rest of the meal you won't see matzah. What can I tell you? So the Hasidim can continue their custom. I have in my book, I bring down that Hasidim don't have to observe this custom, but if they would like, then I gave the detailed guidelines of how they can observe this custom without violating some of the more important halachot of Pesach.
Remember we had a scientist come to us last year?
Very good. We had a scientist come visit us from Israel. He was a student of Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. He was one of the big Ashkenazi poskim in Jerusalem. And he was the go-to person for Rav Shlomo Zalman whenever he needed to know if what halakha was saying really matches up with science, and if science matches up with halakha, he would go to him. And this rabbi, he was a rabbi, he would go to his laboratory and do some experiments and come back to Rav Shlomo Zalman with the results. The argument about Gebraks is as follows. We believe that the moment that flour, even if it was in the oven, the moment it went into the oven and it was baked, you cannot make that flour rise again. That's what Maran writes, and we're not worried about it. Meaning once it's been baked, even if it's just flour and it's been baked, it can't be turned into cookies or cakes. It can't be chametz. And this Hasidic custom says, no, really, it could be. We don't know. Maybe it'll be turned to chametz. Or Shlomo Zalman Auerbach sent his student, go try it out. And he did the following experiment. He took flour, just flour, and he put it with water, and he saw that it became chametz. And then he took the flour and he roasted it in the oven, took it out of the oven, added water, put it, nothing happened to the flour. I mean, it's a property of flour that once it becomes roasted, it cannot rise again. Which is why if you take your bread and you grind it up, it doesn't go back to being flour, it goes to be breadcrumbs.
Right.
Because something happens to it once it becomes baked.
What about matzah balls?
Oh, very good. So they wouldn't have matzah balls in Pesach. In fact, for me, Pesach is all about matzah balls. They have matzah ball soup. My wife's family, they don't ever have matzah balls. And this is the standard Hasidic custom, is not to have matzah balls. Hasidim outside of Israel, on the 8th day of Pesach, many of them have a custom that they eat all of these things outside of Israel. Why that is true, I'm not really sure. I have a few reasons I brought down, but it doesn't really make all that much sense to me. And Hasidim in Israel don't have this custom because the 7th day of Pesach there's only 7 days in Israel, not 8 days. Those are the main differences, and that leads me into, so can one become Sephardic? And the answer is, it's not really can you become Sephardic. It's can you choose which posek to follow. Can you choose that I wish to follow the rulings of Rabbi Yosef Karo, even though my grandparents came from Poland? And the truth is, most Orthodox rabbis you'll ask will tell you, absolutely not. You have to do your family's custom. And I want to tell you one thing. And by this, I don't mean any disrespect to those rabbis. I have never in my life seen a Sephardic Jew be told that he cannot become Hasidic because he's Sephardic. I've never in my life heard someone say, hey, I'm Moroccan, I want to join Chabad. No, you have a family custom, you can't do it. Hey, I'm Yemenite, I want to join Breslov, can I do it? No, you can't. I've never in my life seen such a thing. In fact, there's a Satmar Hasidic community in Lakewood, New Jersey, where they speak Yiddish and they dress like Hasidim, they act like Hasidim, and they're Yemenite Jews. The truth is that if you can go that way, and I agree, I'm going to tell the truth. If a person has a rabbi and they came close to religion, they're sitting, the Lubavitcher Rebbe was the one that they met and inspired them to come back to Judaism, I can't in good conscience tell you, hey, you know what, because your grandparents came from somewhere, throw your rabbi out the window. I don't know that I could say such a thing. I'm telling you a weakness on my end. Some rabbis would say, yeah, of course you could throw him out the window. I couldn't tell you such a thing. If he's your connection to Judaism, he's the one who brought you. I had a Breslov chassid in my house about 2 months ago. And he told me, he said, listen, I grew up in a Yemenite home. He said, a Yemenite home where they didn't even tell me what day of the week Shabbat was on. He said, I didn't know when Pesach came out on the calendar. So they raised me void of anything Jewish. So one day I met a Breslov rabbi, and I became observant. He said, and now people say, oh, how could you be Yemenite and Breslov? He said, my Yemenite tradition was nothing. He said, and the only reason I'm observant today is because of the Breslov community. And so that's my community. And I respect that. I understand that. But then it could go the other way too. A person can say, I wish to accept upon myself the rulings of Rabbi Yosef Karo and the Shulchan Aruch. You're allowed to do such a thing. Oh, so what about your family custom? I'm aware about family customs. I'm aware. I asked Harav Peretz about this. And Harav Peretz, I maybe even brought it down in my book. Harav Peretz said, I would like to see after 120 years, I would like to see the Bed Din Shel Mala, the heavenly court, put you in Gehenom because you followed the rulings of Rabbi Yosef Karo. Hare, even the Ashkenazi world, 99% of the time follows Rabbi Yosef Karo. We don't argue. Sfaradim and Ashkenazi, we're almost the same halachot. We learn the same book. When I went for smicha, when Rabbi Lagamsky went for smicha, when someone else went for smicha, we all study the same Shulchan Aruch. So some of us have this commentary that's more authoritative for us. For some of us, it's that commentary. But it's the 1% that we're differing on. Right. So for that 1%, you wish to be... So what's going to happen to you? I mean, 99% of the time, we follow Rabbi Yosef Karo regardless of the community you're in. And I know what I'm sharing is not mainstream. I know that.
There's one thing that's important to that, and that is that the whole basis of the Jewish system is that a person nullifies his own intelligence to be consistent with whichever way he picks. In other words, let's say you're even among Sfardim. If you pick Rav Avadia for one thing and Rav Mordechai Eliyahu for another thing, and you go shopping because you want to do what you want to do, you're not being a Jew.
So I'll agree.
The
Consistency.
tradition of Judaism is whatever way you pick, you take the chumras and the kulas. That means the hard and the easy, because every single posek that's a legal judge that's important has both aspects. He has things where you'll find he is more stringent than everybody else or most people.
Right.
And
So you're bringing up a good point, and
stringent.
I'll read to you something that I pointed out here. I wrote this in the introduction to my book.
It's not like
And
going
I
to Trader
said-
Joe's
I said-
or to Costco or to...
I said, that being said, the way I was taught and continue to teach halakha may perhaps be different from some other valid approaches to halakha. I therefore request that those who follow the leniencies in this guide also follow the areas of halakha in which we are more stringent. I take no responsibility for those who pick and choose their leniencies, and definitely do not condone the actions of those who will use this guide to cause strife in the holy communities of Israel. This is not the point. When I wrote this book, and I know there are things here, it's not so you can go to the local rabbi in your synagogue and hit him over the head. Hey, look, how many sources I have that you're wrong. That's not the point. If you don't like what he's saying, so find yourself a different synagogue.
Right.
We need more members. Like Kilat Sha'ar Shamayim. Come over. Yeah? But the whole idea here is consistency. That being said, I want to make a little bit of headway in the halachot. So, kitniyot, I want to tell you, kitniyot is a custom that even many Sfaradim are careful to observe. Kitniyot is a custom that originates very far back in Jewish tradition, in the times of the Rishonim. In the medieval Jewish times, there were some rabbis that already observed Jewish communities refraining from eating certain kinds of seeds and legumes and beans and rice and corn, certain things that this category expanded to include. There's no real reason for why Jews, specifically Ashkenazim, took on this custom. The reasons that are given, some of them are as follows. Anything that may have been carried around in the same sacks that flour was carried around in, so maybe they were worried there was some residual flour in the sack, and therefore they said, rice is okay, but it comes in flour sacks, we're worried about it. Or if you've ever been to Sprouts and you've seen the different bins over there, and you'll see that sometimes it won't take, now they fixed it by the way, every bin has its own little shovel, but it used to be, you would take one shovel from here, and shovel from there, and shovel, and so when you get your lentils, how do you know the lentils weren't used for the guy who was taking his whole wheat flour also? Maybe. And so Ashkenazim had this custom to stay away from these things because of the fear of eating from chametz on Pesach. What else happened? There's an idea in halakha called marit ha'ayin. Sometimes you'll do something, and it's okay to do it. But other people will see you, and they'll say, oh, look at them, look what they do on Pesach. And it's not, I'll tell you very carefully, marit ha'ayin is not there because what people might say about you. So let me explain. I was heard when I was a little kid in Jewish school, they told me, if you really need the bathroom, you shouldn't go to the bathroom in McDonald's. Because someone might say, oh, look at him, he's eating not kosher food. I consulted once with the posek, and the posek said, with friends like that, you don't need enemies. You just want to use the bathroom. What does it make a difference where you want to use the bathroom? There is no halakha prohibiting you from entering a non-kosher establishment. My proof? Have you ever been to a hotel? You never sat in the lobby where other people were eating non-kosher food? What's that different than a McDonald's? You go to Starbucks? You ever got yourself a coffee? What about the bacon sandwiches over there? You go there too? So don't please, McDonald's is not any different. There are 13 things maybe a little more, a little less, in the Talmud that a rabbi says you should stay away from because they look bad. You don't have to invent new ones. But the idea was, there were certain things we were afraid, not that people would judge us. Why do I have to care about his judgment? There are things that we're afraid we might mislead people. For example, I'm the rabbi, and someone says, oh, I saw the rabbi eat bread on Pesach. And I said, okay, so I can also eat bread. And instead, I was eating a potato starch challah roll, which tastes like this is what Gehenom is going to taste like. But they saw me eating a beautiful challah made out of potato starch, and some said, hey, maybe you shouldn't make challahs out of potato starch, because people will learn from you. They won't know that it's potato starch. And this is where some of these customs came from. It wasn't there so other people fear of judgment. I'm trying to correct the mistake. It's there in order not to mislead people. And therefore, kitniot, many of the kitniot, rice flour, corn flour, you have today all kinds of flours that are made potato starch. My wife's family has an old Ashkenazi custom, you should know, that potatoes are eaten on Pesach, but potato starch is not used on Pesach.
Oh, wow.
Which really gets rid of then the other half of the things Ashkenazim could eat on Pesach.
Right.
You're left with potatoes and potato starch, so now it's just potatoes. But the truth is that there's I don't agree with it, but there's a logic to it. The logic is these are things which could really mislead other people. They see a lady in her kitchen mixing around, making, it sometimes could look like chametz, and there's a fear. We don't want to cause other people to eat chametz on Pesach. That being said, Rav Moshe Feinstein has a letter. Rav Moshe Feinstein was one of the greatest tzaddikim who lived in this country. I'll actually tell you the truth is when Rav Moshe Feinstein passed away, the spiritual decline of this country began. I don't mean about the non-Jewish world. I mean there was a time after the Holocaust where there were big rabbis that went to Israel and big rabbis that went outside of Israel. And many of them came to New York, to Baltimore, to Lakewood, to LA, to wherever they came to. And as they passed away, which great rabbis come from America? I'm not telling you, God forbid, the rabbis in America are not great. But the leaders of the generation, the Sephardic ones, the Ashkenazi ones, the Hasidic ones, they all live in Israel. You had a generation where Rabbi Moshe Feinstein lived here, Rav Pam lived here, Rabbi Ruderman lived here, Rav Aaron Cutler lived here. You had the Lubavitcher Rebbe who lived here, the Satmar Rebbe lived here. Big tzaddikim. Today, who do you have here? We had in Israel Chacham Ovadia Yosef, Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu, we had Rav Eliashiv, we had a Rav Shach, we had a big tzaddikim. Today you have Rav Chaim Kanievsky, you have Rav Steinman, you have big tzaddikim in Yerushalayim. Rabbi Shlomo Amar you have big rabbis. You have even in the Tilumi world, you have Rabbi Shlomo Aviner, who's a big tzaddik in Israel. A lot of big chachamim. Who do you have here? As Rav Moshe Feinstein passed away, the decline of this country's rabbinic leadership began, in my opinion. Rav Moshe Feinstein has a letter in which he says, there is no logic to the custom prohibiting kitniot. There is no logic, meaning it was just a decree that a community is accepted upon themselves. He says, therefore, anything that did not exist in Europe, that Jews did not eat in Europe, cannot be included today into the category of kitniot. Because this is not a logical thing that there's rules of what is kitniot and what is not. Rather, there were things Jews customarily did not eat in Europe, and therefore they don't eat it today. But he says, other peanuts, he was asked. I said, peanuts? We didn't have peanuts in Europe. He said, so of course you can have peanuts and peanut butter on Pesach. And I tell you, Ashkenazim are allowed to. Today there's been big wars about quinoa. In Israel they say quinoa.
Quinoa.
I learned about quinoa when I was a little kid from the Rosenbergs. And I've been eating quinoa since I was a child. I mean, when the religious world discovered quinoa 4 years ago, I was blown away that they were blown away. How do you not know about this? But I guess the world didn't know. And you have all kinds of opinions. Oh, it's chametz. How can a quinoa be chametz? It's not one. There are only 5 grains. It's not from the 5 grains. Oh well, it's kitniot. How could it be kitniot? How much you think in Europe somebody was eating quinoa? If in New York 4 years ago they weren't eating quinoa, you think in Poland anybody knew what quinoa was? These things, according to Moshe Feinstein, cannot be included into the category of kitniot. They can't. And therefore, new things. Someone's going to come to you tomorrow and tell you, hey guys, asparagus is kitniot, which someone once told me. But I think they must have misheard someone, because it wasn't a Torah scholar, just a passerby. You can't add new things. Rav Kook, alav shalom, the first chief rabbi was not the state of Israel, but of the land of Israel at the time. Rav Kook was of the opinion that Ashkenazim can have sesame seeds on Pesach. It's not tchina, these sesame oil, it's not kitniot. The Badats, who were the Rav Kook group. That's their whole reason for creation. That they were created just to spite Rav Kook. Started by Rav Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, and Alav Shalom, a big tzaddik, who was then backed by the Satmar Rebbe in order so that Rav Kook shouldn't have a stronghold in the land of Israel. And the Sesame, they said, listen, Rav Kook, maybe you're right, but it's a slippery slope. Once you allow them to have sesame, tomorrow you're going to allow them to have, I don't know, green beans, and then the next day they'll be eating corn, God forbid, and then maybe they'll have cookies on Pesach. And they went a war against Rav Kook, and Rav Kook wrote a beautiful letter. A letter which I always keep close to my heart. Rav Kook said, I have to tell you the difference between my community and your community. He said, I trust my community. I trust them that when I tell them something is allowed, they'll eat it. And when I tell them it's not allowed, they won't eat it. You don't trust your community. And so therefore you're afraid if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. He said, but what kind of rabbi are you then? He said, you don't have a handle on your own community? He said, you're going to always suspect them of breaking the rules, of undermining you? He said, I don't wish to have a community like that. He said, when you teach a community that if something's allowed, you'll tell them it's allowed. Trust me, that if it's allowed, I would tell you. Then the times where you tell them things are not allowed, they're going to believe you that if you had a way to permit it, you would, but they know that you couldn't, and they'll follow you then too. Says Rav Kook, you are undermining the entire field of rabbinics. And he's correct. He's correct.
I have a question from the Chinese doctor and also from Mandelbaum, the Zos HaBracha. What does Zos HaBracha say today about the bracha on quinoa? Because it was a machlokes whether it was Adama or eitz. Is it a fruit or is it not a fruit?
It's a seed.
I don't know that there was a machlokas. I'm assuming that you do. My custom has always been to make a hadama on it.
Okay. And what does the Chinese doctor say? How is it
It's
grown?
her husband. What does Zev say?
How about what?
What bracha does he make on quinoa?
Check. I don't know.
We'll have to ask
No,
him
I
on
want
Shabbat.
to know how it grows. So is it a fruit or is
Oh,
it
my
a
wife did
fruit?
research
It's a
on it
seed.
today.
It's a seed.
It's a seed.
Uh-huh.
It's not a fruit.
It grows. It kind of looks like you know those flowers that they stick in for decoration when they have nothing else, little white pieces. Yeah.
But they're tall, like
but they're
corn
very
stalks.
tall. They look like corn stalks, but they're tiny little. They're seeds.
My gut tells me it's a hadama though. It's not a halachic gut. It's just a gut.
Really?
Yeah. I could be wrong. Don't hold me to it if I'm wrong. I'm allowed to be wrong. Yes. So what am I telling you? I'm telling you the following about kiniyot. If your custom is not to have rice, if your custom is not to have corn, don't have rice. Don't have corn. What will happen to you if you skip a whole week of rice and corn? But don't tell me that it's prohibited. Don't tell me that it's chametz. Don't look down to somebody else because they eat it. That's the least of our worries on Pesach. In fact, there was a big rabbi, my wife's great-great-grandfather, Rabbi Yonatan Halevy, who said the one thing at your table that is definitely chametz is your matzah. It's the only thing that might be chametz. It's the only thing that's flour and water. Everything else is just a custom. It's the only thing that might actually be chametz. And you're eating, because you don't have quinoa, and because you don't have rice, and because you don't have corn, and because you won't eat salad, and because you won't eat eggs, and because you're eating all day long matzah. You've upped if you knew statistics, you're upping your chances of having chametz by 100%. Have you ever looked at it that way? Everyone who's strict about these laws of Pesach is forcing people to do more things with matzah. Matzah, which you don't know who's baking it and who's not baking it. Okay. Why am I telling you this? Because there are Ashkenazi authorities who hold that even though they prohibit rice and corn and such things, that what's the fear? The derivatives of them are not chametz, are not kitniot. Obviously they're not chametz. They're not kitniot. This is a term called mei kitniot, which means even though rice and corn are prohibited, rice syrup or corn syrup or give me a
Soy
better
sauce.
example. A soy sauce, right, which doesn't have wheat. Some soy sauce has wheat in it, but soy sauce is not it's not kiniyot. Many Ashkenazim can have soy sauce on Pesach, according to many Ashkenazi authorities. Rabbi Dov Lior has a whole tshuva on this. Was the rabbi of Kiryat Arba, Hebron. And my chavruta once called to verify if he really holds it. He really holds that? That's a unheard of opinion. And he called Rav Dov. Rav Dov Lior married, to the best of my knowledge, and his wife passed away, and he remarried to another rabbi's wife. And he passed away, and they were both big rabbinic figures, and they got married. And my friend called up the house and said, is it true that Rav Lior says that you're allowed to have mei kitniot, liquids of kitniot on Pesach? He says, it's true, but he's not correct, and my custom is not to have it. Meaning, she said, Rebbetzin Lior holds you cannot have it, and Harav Lior holds you can have it. But the truth is that already, you're getting into, it's a stringency on top of a custom, which in itself is already a stringency. and how far removed can you get? I'll even add another stringency. Forgive me those of you who don't drink or eat these things. But imagine that there was corn syrup in a beverage. I'm not telling you that corn syrup is good for you. I'm using it as a halachic example. Corn syrup, you went to the store to buy a drink that has corn syrup for sweetening. How much water is there compared to corn syrup? Which is the majority?
More.
More water, obviously more water. That means that the corn syrup is nullified by a majority.
So you can nullify everything except chametz.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Kitniot is not chametz. You're even allowed to intentionally nullify kitniot. So then why does it have to be kosher for Passover and Coca-Cola? Right, some would say it's not good for you the whole year. I'm not talking here about health, I'm talking about kashrut. It doesn't have to be, and the truth is that all of these are stringencies that have no basis in halakha, and I suggest that we keep moving. So, kitniot, this is my answer. My answer is, if you want to become a follower of Rabbi Yosef Karo, you can, but be strict like him and everything else in the book as well. And if you would like to be, you're allowed to keep your custom of not eating kitniot, but don't be stringent about the things that are obviously allowed on Pesach.
Is that in the book?
That's in the book.
Okay.
Some of it, not all of it. Some of it. All right.
So, a quick question. So, if you don't have any pots and pans that are for Passover, but you have plates that are, so can you just make all your meals beforehand and freeze them all and
Yes.
just be
yes.
able to take them out of the
Very good.
freezer?
That's a good question. Yes.
Mhm.
You cannot use those on Pesach though, and which is why I'm walking right to the next section, which is how to kosher things on Pesach. Can I bring my toys?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Watch this. Is this on still?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk to you about koshering things. The laws of koshering. It's not a real word, koshering. I'm just using it because that's the way that American Jews say these things. Koshering means the act of making something kosher. Now this applies the whole year. It also is the same thing for Pesach. I want to explain there are a few steps to this. The first is the number one rule. The only things that require koshering for Pesach are things which absorb flavor.
Oh.
Any item that absorbs flavor can then give off flavor. So let's say you have a pot. I'm going to forget chametz for a second. And use it for not kosher food. And that would absorb the not kosher food flavor into the pot.
Wait.
You're afraid that the next time you make food in there and it's going to be kosher, it's going to expel, what's the word that I used in my book? I think expel the not kosher flavor into your food, and now you're in a problem. According to halakha, the way you determine whether things are kosher or not is if you can taste whatever was in the previous pot inside of your food. And that means a few things. Glass is a non-absorbent material. And therefore glass does not need to be koshered ever. You can use glass for meat, clean it out, use it for milk. On Erev Pesach, you can clean it out, use it for chametz. And on that night, you can clean it out and use it for your soup at the Pesach Seder. Glass requires no kashering. Ashkenazim disagree. Even though some are strict about this the whole year, Ashkenazim have a custom that because of the stringency of Pesach, glass is not kosher for Pesach unless you have no other choice. And that's why many Ashkenazim choose not to kosher glass for Pesach. It's an extra stringency. When I received my smicha, Harav Peretz would not let me out of the office unless I promised him, and my Ashkenazi Chavruta promised him, that if someone were to ask us the question, we would tell them that they do not need to kosher glass, regardless of their background. But you should know, that's the custom. I'm being fair and sharing with you the
What
different
do
customs.
Ashkenazim do if they want to use glass from all year for Pesach?
They have to soak it. It's in my book. There's a process of soaking it for 3 days and such things, and that makes it better to be used on Pesach.
There's a good friend of mine named Eliezer Wolf who put out a very simple guide in English. He's from Scotland. He's been learning many years. It's about kashrus. It's a very simple book.
Okay.
And there I went ba'oimik with him on the halachas of glass because I have an antique glass collection from over 100 years ago, a big one. And it seems that the Ramah is in controversy, but because of the controversy, he holds that the only time we wouldn't do glass, in fact, the controversy is so great, you may not ever need to really, according to Ashkenazim, really need to kosher glass other than perhaps 24 hours 3 times, and even then, when it's used hot, then
And
it's
this is
something.
only for Pesach.
However, for Pesach, even he, and Eliezer is quite learned, and he didn't go after the Qumras. He holds that by Pesach,
Right,
because
because
of
there are a
that
number.
you should not
Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank
should
brings
not
us down. The Yad
kosher
Binyamin,
glass for Pesach.
Yad Yehuda. They mention it seems to be that the only time that everyone agrees the Ramah says not to use glass is for Pesach. The controversy is the rest of the year. I brought this down in my book. It's in the footnotes there. All right, let's talk about kosher dishes. So now that being said, you have to know that what does absorb? Technically, metal used to absorb. I told you in my book I wrote a footnote. I changed it a little bit this year because I wanted to be more applicable. Stainless steel does not truly absorb. We treat metal like old metal, but it's not accurate. But forgive me that for the sake of the discussion, you have to pretend that the metal that I'm referring to is metal, not stainless steel, but real metal back in the day that was pretty porous. If you've ever seen old knives or old cooking ware, it had room to absorb and exploit, kind of like ceramic almost. It had a certain grainy feel to it. Yeah, but we have a very different kind of metal. But let's imagine. So I have a pot, and it absorbs flavor into it. The only way a pot absorbs flavor, or any dish absorbs flavor, is through heat. Cold things do not ever absorb flavor, nor do they exploit flavor. And therefore, sometimes I come to my wife's kitchen, and when she's not home, of course, and I would like to have some cereal with milk, and I have a dairy bowl, and I put my cereal and my milk inside, and I just can't find a dairy. I can't find a dairy silverware, so I'll use a meat spoon and have my cold cereal with it, and wash it off afterwards. And according to halakha, that's okay because it was all cold. Don't be afraid of what I just told you. It's a halakha what I just told you. That scares the living daylights out of people? Okay, it's still the halakha. I'm not going to change halakha
Why do you
because
do that to a nice Swedish girl?
she asks me the question every single time.
No, the footnote was he does when I'm not home.
Et chata'ai ani maskir hayom. My sins I'm sharing
You
today.
know what lachatz
But-
causes a girl in the background?
But now that I've shared this with you, I have something else to tell you. According to halakha, in the Torah, biblical halakha, when a pot absorbs flavor, that flavor can only be expleted and make something else not kosher within the first 24 hours that has been used. After 24 hours have passed, it is called something that's after me'et le'et, it's after a 24-hour period, and therefore, only on a rabbinic level do we prohibit using that pot for something else. Meaning, if I had a meat pot, I used it for chicken soup, and then 24 hours passed, according to the Torah, it's a paref pot now.
Oh.
According to our rabbis, no, we don't want you to do that because what if one day you need a rush, your in-laws are coming, you'll use it 23 hours, then that's really a problem. And our rabbis made a decree, Gzera atu ben yomo. We said, we're afraid you might use it within the 24-hour period, and therefore you can't use it until you kosher it. But you should, after 24 hours, the prohibition always drops from a biblical one to a rabbinic one. Which is why the first step that I always tell people before you kosher a utensil is wait 24 hours. Now, what if you don't know when the last time you used the pot was? If you don't know, halakha says, stam kilim enam b'nei yoman, that your average pot or pan or utensil wasn't used in the last 24 hours. You have a kitchen, you have many more pots and pans than you need in your kitchen. The chances of you using all of them in the last 24 hours are minimal to none. You walk into someone else's kitchen, you don't know when the last time something was used. The rule is that the average pot and pan or dish or utensil is not used in the last 24 hours.
Now, what about if the pot is from in my put away from last year and my Pesach pot?
You don't have, if it's a Pesach pot, you don't
Yeah,
have to
but
touch
I
it.
don't know if it was meat. Let's say I don't know if it was meat or milk.
So you would
because
still,
it's been a year now, it can be.
I would
whatever
still
want.
suggest you kosher it if it's
Oh,
metal, okay? Because you're not sure. It would be better to tie like a sticker to it, or like a
Well, I
piece
don't
of
have
tape.
meat and milk, but I'm just.
Okay, in such a situation, even though technically my gut tells, hey, listen, what's the? Yeah, of course it's okay, but our rabbis, it's important to take our rabbis' decrees into serious consideration. And they weren't fools. They made these rules for a reason because people make mistakes with these things. And then someone calls me up and they ask a question, and I'm like, you're in trouble because you didn't take care of the rabbinic prohibitions. This is not a later prohibition. This is an early rabbinic prohibition from the times of the Talmud. So now let's talk what we say in Hebrew, tachlis. Tachlit. Let's talk practical laws. What is this?
A bowl.
It's a bowl, but this is my big pot that I put on the stove, okay? This is a big pot. I take this pot and I put it on the stove. This is called on the fire. Now I absorbed in here chametz, or for our purposes, yeah, let's call it. It absorbed chametz, hot chametz. How do I kasher this pot? Tell me. I clean it very well. Obviously, it has to be clean. The next thing I do is I wait 24 hours, and then I kasher it by putting this into another big pot that's sitting on the fire, meaning in the same circumstance that it became not kosher. I kasher it. I boil it on top of a flame, and once it becomes hot, it is good to go for Pesach.
Now, how do you capture that big pot that you have where you stick in your little pots?
So let me tell you. I didn't have my little pot that's sitting on the fire. The easiest way to kasher this is put this one on the fire, put inside of it boiling water, take this guy, and obviously it would fit entirely in here, and then dip it, immerse it completely, and now this pot is kosher for Pesach. Edith says, how do I kasher the big pot though? I'll tell you why I know this halakha. Because the first time I took a smicha test on it, I had to make it up because I didn't study that part. And so, this is what it says. The Ben Ish Chai brings, and the fruit poskim bring it down. Maran himself writes about this. You would do the following. You would either find a pot that is big enough to hold it inside, or you would take this pot and fill it all the way to the tippy tip top, and take a hot rock that you boiled in another pot, and drop it inside, let it overflow on the sides. And then it kasher not just the inside, it kasher the outside at the same time, and you are good to go. So water has to be on all parts of the pot at one time in order for it to become kasher the Pesach. But let's make the situation a little bit more interesting. I have my bowl. What is my bowl? My bowl sits on my table, right? That's where I eat. I take my ladle, and I stick it into the pot, and I put soup into my bowl, right? Tell me, how do I kasher the bowl, and how do I kasher the ladle?
You just rinse it.
Wait a second. Rinse it. Let's start. How did this become chametz?
By putting it into something.
By putting it into something else that was on the fire. So how do I kasher this?
The same way.
The same way. I put a pot on the fire, and I put my utensils inside. How do I kasher this?
The same way?
You rinse
No.
it.
How did this become not kosher?
By receiving it. Hot
By
water.
receiving it from what? From something that was on the fire?
A second.
No.
Yeah.
It was in the.
Yeah. From
It
the
received
side.
it from something that
Oh,
went
it was
off
in
the
the
fire
spoon.
Oh,
and
that's
brought it here.
Yeah.
So technically, the way I would kasher this, I would boil hot water in this. I would take a lot of it in my smaller pot and pour it over my bowl, and then it's kosher for Pesach.
So you wouldn't stick it in the pot.
No. That's hard to do. It's messy also.
Right.
The easiest way is just to stick it in the pot, because anything that's a higher level of heat can always kasher a lower level of heat. Let me ask you this question. This spoon, I eat it in my bowl. How do I kasher this?
Wash it with soap.
Technically, I only need to put it inside of something that had water poured into it from the one in the stove. Essentially, this requires a very low level of heat, but the easiest way to do it is make a big pot, put all your
Put it all
utensils
in
in, take them out. The only time that this doesn't work, liquids, is when you use something on the grill, on the fire itself, without liquids. For example, skewers, your actual barbecue rack. That, you can't put the barbecue rack in water, because what's hotter, fire or water?
Fine.
The fire. And the way to kasher that would be the same levels, but by putting it into the fire.
So, okay, so if you've got silverware, that's not silver, obviously, it's just, flatware, and you're using it all year, you can just take all of that and dump it in hot water,
Boil
and
it.
it's
Boiling hot water.
boiling hot water,
And it's good
and
for
it's
Pesach.
good to go.
It has to be clean, and you should wait 24 hours. Yeah, absolutely.
And by mini kosher Pesach, it's also kosher.
It's also pareve, meaning, yeah, you're starting from
Oh,
scratch.
oh,
It goes
okay.
back
It's
to
like
its,
brand new.
it's a
Wow.
brand new utensil.
Now,
Yeah.
what about your bowl? What about the material of the bowl?
Oh, here, very good. I didn't talk to you about ceramic, because most poskim say you cannot kasher ceramic, because people are afraid that their china is going to break. Heat cracks ceramic. And therefore most poskim say you should stay away. If you have ceramic that you need to be kashered, consult with me privately. It's not the kind of thing I want to put on a video. Suffice to say, there are ways to kasher ceramic, especially according to Ashkenazim, according to all opinions. It's not a ruling that I share with everybody. It's on a case-per-case basis. Most of the time, the only things we kasher are metal or plastic. Plastic would fall into the same category, either with glass, if it's really a non-porous plastic, or with metal, if you think that it sometimes absorbs flavor. It really depends on the quality of plastic which you're using. But I brought out 2 heterim in my book that I share publicly, and I know that nobody else does. And I wish to share these halachot with you to make your life a little easier. These are not mainstream, but they're true. They're true halakha. Someone would have to work very hard to disprove us on this. It's not me. I'm sharing you from Big Poskim. I have an oven. My oven goes to 500 degrees. If I take my pots and pans and I put them in the oven on 500 degrees, they're kosher for Pesach. Skip the water.
You're gonna destroy them.
Oh, so I did it to my wife's pots one year. Everything was okay. I did it the second year, and all her handles fell off. You have to know what kind of pots you're talking
it
about.
depends on the
I'm
pot.
coming from the kashrut side, not from the practical how to make your pot last side. But it's an easy way to do pans, utensils, some things that are just they're big, they're clumsy. You can put them into the oven. I want to tell you an even easier way to
For how
kashrut.
long?
Until when you touch them, you'd get burned. So
That's-
10, 15 minutes. You want to be extra strict. 15 minutes. That's it. How do you kasher your oven?
You put it really high.
You clean it very well. You wait 24 hours if you can. You did this last year, I remember.
Yeah.
And then you put it on the highest it goes. It doesn't have to be self-cleaning. It just has to be the highest the temperature of the
but
oven goes.
self-cleaning is
It might be easier. It also takes a very long time.
you know.
So you can about half an hour is what I recommend for an oven. How do you kasher the stovetop? If you have a glass stovetop, do you need a kasher? No,
Clean
no,
it, you
you don't need
clean
a
it.
kasher. If you have a metal stovetop,
Yeah.
you would take everything. You have to really clean well. So I would suggest either hire someone or work for it. It has to be clean, meaning you could take this oven and sell it to somebody else. That's how clean it has to be.
I noticed that the Rosh Shiva is Machne, Rav Scheinberg,
About
and he says you should use oven spray in an oven before you do the self-cleaning.
So it's
because-
pogem.
Yeah, because he's worried that it's very hard to get the
To
oven
clean.
clean. Yeah.
okay. Well, and I'll tell you that what he brings down is sometimes when you know something can't be clean, you spray chemicals in there, and then that becomes. It's not going to
Yeah.
exploit any good flavor into your food.
Yeah.
And so the idea is, anyways, when you clean, you're probably using some kind of cleaning agent which would solve this problem. It's a good point. That's why I didn't mention it specifically. Your stovetop, you scrub those grates well. You turn on the stove tops for about 15 minutes also. So they're red hot, and then you turn them off. I ask you that when you do these things, be safe, please. Be careful. The things sometimes are a little dangerous, they're a little bit scary. I want to make your life even more easier, though.
But if you have gas, it doesn't become red.
Even
hot.
more
It's
easy.
already
You're
not
saying
easy.
you don't need a black on it to even spread the heat though on the top.
No, I don't. You don't.
Why? How do you get around it?
Why would you?
Rosh Shiva time is that you need to get the libun has to be complete.
On the
You
parts
get-
that you don't cook?
You're talking about the grates on the oven, the top of the oven.
Yes.
On the stove.
So he that's what he brings down. That's what he wants.
But there's no reason, though. Why would I have to kasher the parts in between the actual
You're
stove?
saying as long as you get the grates completely, and how do you propose to do that? Just
By
with
turning the same way they became not kosher.
I could hear a svara that whenever you cook, there is splatter.
Oh, very good. Okay, let's talk about this in one second. Don't bring up splatter as soon as I'm done with the dishwasher. Okay, please bring it up because it's
I'll
important.
get some dishwasher
Okay,
questions.
so dishwashers. How do you kasher dishwashers? There are two opinions in the world, or three opinions really in the world of dishwashers. In general, let's talk about kosher, meat and milk dishwashers. Dishwashers are normally made out of plastic and metal. That's normally what's. Some people say ceramic. I haven't seen a ceramic dishwasher in a very long time. Plastic and metal, both items which can be kashered. I saw an article from the Starcade, and in the tubes in the back, he got chametz stuck inside. Let him. He can keep his article to himself. The truth is that Rabbi Yosef brings down a halacha from Shulchan Aruch. Maran, Rabbi Yosef Karo says that how do you used to wash your dishes? You didn't have a sink, so how did you wash your dishes? Don't tell me the river. That's not what they did. Everyone tells me the river. Like, have you ever watched something in a river? You take water, you put it in a big bowl, and you boil the water. That we have warm or hot water. And then you put your utensils in, and you wash it. You're giving them a bath, essentially, to your dishes. Soap, scrubbing. Maran, Rabbi Yosef Karo writes, the Ramah does not argue that you can take dirty meat dishes and dirty dairy dishes and put them in hot water at the same time, so long as there's a little bit of soap in that water, because that soap then causes the flavor to become bad. It's not a good flavor that's being passed in. And Maran says you can wash both of them together. Rabbi Yosef rules this according to halakha, and he did this in his own house. You have one dishwasher for meat and milk, and he puts inside meat dishes and dairy dishes that are dirty, and puts detergent, closes the door, and it's 100% kosher. How parents is a little bit more careful. He agrees that it's true according to halakha. He just suggests that you should do first meat and then milk. Meat and milk in different cycles. You don't have to do a cycle in between. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein had the strictest opinion, and his opinion was that you have to actually have meat racks and dairy racks because that's what the dishes sit on. I've never seen someone who does this. I'm sure there are people who do, but I haven't observed such a thing. Essentially, the people who don't follow either Rav Yosef or Rav Peretz would just say that you cannot kasher a dishwasher. And that makes a lot of problems. People move to a new apartment, they can't use the dishwasher. Pesach, you can use the dishwasher, and I'll tell you exactly how you kasher it.
So
You first-
Rav Moshe was saying in the same cycle, you can still do it, but you
No, it's very good. One after the other, but you have to replace the racks inside.
Separate racks.
Separate racks.
Okay,
Very good. That's you
take
clarify.
it out and
Take them out and put in the meat ones, and take them out and put in the dairy ones. Right. So here in this situation, you first would run a cycle with soap. So it does what to your dishwasher? An empty cycle, but it cleans it, right? Now that it's cleaned, you have to kasher it, or you would wait 24 hours. Then how do you kasher it? You don't kasher with soap. You kasher just with boiling hot water. You put it on the hottest setting, and you let it run a clean water cycle through it, and that kashers your dishwasher.
That sounds easy.
It's an easy thing to do. Now let me, yeah.
If you can wash, if they say that you can wash your meat dishes with your dairy dishes in the dishwasher, why can't you do it on the sink?
You can do it in the sink too.
Okay.
I mean, my house has two sinks because the people who lived before me were very religious. But I wash my meat and milk dishes in the same sink.
Together with the same
Same
sponge.
sponge and the same everything.
Oh yeah.
Oh really?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because once you have the soap on, the food is no longer edible. And when the food is no
These are
longer
not
edible,
leniencies. These are halachot.
Oh.
And the people who don't do like that are stringencies. These are not leniencies in kashrut. I'm reiterating
And
this point.
I think always a good point to go back to is, you think about not even our grandparents, great-grandparents, but when halakha was being coded, they didn't have the luxuries we have today. So when people say like, oh, but this is better, the answer is you can make up whatever you want, but that's not what the standard was. Silver foil never existed.
And the
Three
que-
sinks never existed.
The question
Our
is why
parents
not?
didn't have
though?
enough money for
One of the
15
dishwashers.
different... Right.
If I can do it, why not? That question can be asked about everything. There's no reason to. There's no reason to be stricter than Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, than Rabbi Yosef Karo, than the Rambam, than the Ramah. These are big. Why do you have to be stricter than Rashi? You have to be stricter than Rabbi Huda and Nasi. What happened here? Moshe Rabbeinu would eat it and you wouldn't eat it? That something's wrong with that statement.
So can you put all your dishes and things in the dishwasher and just turn it
Thank you
on?
very much, Esther. So this is where I researched this for months until I found the Chaver de Messiah. I found another rabbi in Yerushalayim that wrote such a thing. I sent these tshuvot to Rabbi Peretz. Rabbi Peretz agreed with me that it's correct, and I put it in my book only after I asked Rabbi Peretz if it's correct. Anything that requires kashering, listen carefully, not the ones on the fire, but the ladle that goes into the pot, or the pot itself, or the silverware, not the
Or
pot
the
itself, the
plates.
bowl itself, the plates. You can put them into the dishwasher with just water once they're clean, and run a cycle, hot water, and that's the same thing as taking water off the fire and pouring it on the dishes.
And
It's
it's
the
a
same
lot
thing.
easier.
It's a lot easier. It's a lot cleaner.
Doing Haggalah
That-
all at once in the dishwasher.
It's really
And you would do meat and milk in the same one.
yes. It's what we would call irui mikli rishon. It's pouring from a hot water vessel. Some would argue that it's even better than irui mikli rishon. It's actually hagalah, but okay, leave it at that.
I'm a little confused. I mean, I don't have the separation of meat and milk and all that, but it still confuses me. See, if you can wash meat and milk dishes together at the same time, what's the whole big deal about having them separate?
Oh, thank you. You asked a good question. And this year I'm kind of freestyling. So
And again,
I'm-
Rav Moshe held that you would have to have separate cycles.
so let me explain though, Edith. What you're asking is as follows.
He was the Gadol
When-
Ador in Ashkenaz.
When flavors
Greatest of my
transfer,
generation.
they transfer through heat. The worry is that my pot is going to receive it. It's a meat pot. It's going to receive some good lasagna flavor from Esther's pot that's in my sink, right? Once I add soap to this mixture, this is called noten ta'am livgan. What happens after 24 hours when biblically your pot is okay to go? We say that whatever flavor was absorbed inside got spoiled. It went bad. You don't want that flavor. You don't want 24-hour lasagna after it's been sitting out at night. Yeah, so therefore, anything that you do to make the flavor that it was absorbed into the pots actually bad, you made it spoiled, you added soap to it, you added chemicals to it, you added something non-edible to it, you sped up that 24-hour process, and really it's okay to wash them together. If you didn't have soap, it would be a problem. But the soap is what allows it to be okay. I'm sorry for not clarifying that before.
What about China?
So china is the same thing as ceramic,
Mm-hmm.
and there are ways to kasher it if you need it. I wouldn't recommend kashering from kosher to
Mhm.
Pesach. Just if you have like a set that belonged to the grandmother that didn't keep kosher and you want to use it, I have ways to help you out with that, just not for the camera.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, now what about the sink? You just pour
The
hot.
sink does not need to be kashered at all. You're not
Oh.
eating from your sink. You didn't cook in your sink. I don't know anybody who eats or cooks from their sink. You have to scrub your sink very well. And shalom al Yisrael. You want to put in a plastic insert. Those are good for bacteria, but for nothing else, according to halakha. I know there are people say you have to boil, and there's none of it is true. You do not have to kasher your sink for Pesach. What about your countertops?
Wait,
No.
back to sinks a minute. A lot of times when I strain things, I do it in the sink and I put the strainer in, and then sometimes things fall to the side. Now, what happens to that food? Sometimes, like, a few things fall, so obviously I'll let it go down the drain. But what's if like half the pot fell into the sink?
That's what we call splatter. That's what Rabbi Manil was asking.
Got it. Okay.
And that's what we're going to say about countertops, because this is the
Okay.
best example I can give.
But before you get to countertops, what about non-stick pots?
Non-stick pots are a good question. Non-stick pots can be kashered the way that you would kasher, if it's a metal non-stick pot, the way you would kasher the metal. The non-stick is included in that category. It's a good question, and you just have to worry. I don't take guarantees for what happens to your non-stick. I just ruined my wife's
You
non-stick
can't put
pot
it
this
in the
week.
oven, not
So-
not at 500. Some of them you can put in at 4.
Right, but you see, so
But
that
not
means you
5.
wouldn't have cooked it on that level either.
Yeah,
So you'll kasher
right.
it the same way you used to cook it. It's a good question.
But
Yes.
nonstick is more porous, more absorbent than stainless steel. So why would you be able to use it?
I don't
Because
know if it
it's-
is really porous. Is it? It seems porous, but I don't think it is
That
actually porous.
the whole point is that you can kasher porous things. That's the whole point. You're kashering this because it's porous.
If
The
it's
question
not-
is, why do you have to kasher stainless steel if it's not porous?
Right,
Just because
right.
I'm afraid that some rabbi will make my life miserable if I tell you that it's like glass. That's the reason. So, what am I telling you, other than what I just told you?
Counters.
Countertops.
We did oven grates or not
Countertops,
yet?
we just
Yeah.
clean
Yeah,
them,
okay.
right?
Countertops,
Okay.
Rabbi Yosef Cairo says, Tevot v'shulchanot, countertops and tables, you have to pour boiling water on them. And the reason is very, very simple. What do you eat your food on in your home? You take potatoes out of the oven. What do you put them onto?
The countertop.
No,
Yeah.
that's it. Put the pot. What do you? Where do you eat the? You put it on that plate.
Oh, you mean after
bring
it's
your
cooked? I thought you meant out of the refrigerator.
We don't eat at Esther's house before. We take the plate. You put this down on the table, and you're eating from your
Plate.
plate. How do you get outside?
Stay in the door. The door's open.
Oh, that door.
Countertops. Okay. Your plates are what gets kosher and not kosher. What is your table? What role does it serve in this whole process?
It holds the plate.
It holds the plate. Does any flavor transfer from your potato into your table?
No.
What about from your pot into your countertop? No. You have to know. If you take a meat pot, boiling hot meat pot, and a boiling hot dairy pot, and you touch both of them together, nothing happens. Flavor doesn't go through the pots into another pot into the other food. The only time it's a problem is you'll take your meat pot and put it in the pot of the lasagna. Then you'd be in a problem. But here you're not having such a situation. And therefore, Rabbi Yosef Cairo, in his world, you sat at a table. Where did you put the food?
Right on the table.
On the table.
Yeah.
You ate off of the table. You ever been to the house? They're
Yeah, they just
slicing
have
bread
plates
on the
and stuff.
table.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Oh.
There's a big communal bowl. Everyone
how
takes
they
their
do it.
potatoes and puts it in front of them, and they eat it with their hands. 100 years ago, you would go to a Jewish community in most places in the world, then you see somebody sitting in on the floor somewhere eating with his food. They pass around a bowl of rice, and you take a handful for yourself. You take some chicken with your hands for yourself. That's how people ate. We've become very sophisticated
And
with
they
our
didn't die
forks
either.
and knives
They
and
didn't
plates.
die.
There's a famous argument in the Talmud about when you're at someone else's house. Should you use your fingers to take food? The oatmeal from the pot? Should you use your fingers, or should you use the wooden spoon? And some people say, no, we like the wooden spoon because it gives wood flavor. They say, no, we like the fingers because it gives its own flavor. That was the way people ate.
Finger
This
flavor.
is the way people ate.
That's the beginning of finger food.
Countertops.
The dirty hand.
You would take your roasted lamb steaks off of the grill, and you would put it down on your countertop and slice them up, and then serve them to people.
That's why they
So
were
what
wooden.
is your countertop really? It's not what we call a countertop. Your countertop is really a plate. That's why Maran says your plates or your countertops need kashering. Our tables are no different than the floor. Do you eat off the floor?
No.
So sometimes food fall on the floor. Yes. Do you ever kasher your floor? Give it 10 years, people will be kashering their floors. But right now we don't. And therefore, your tables don't need kashering. They need cleaning, scrubbing very well. Maybe if there's little tiles and you want to get in there and really clean them well, they do not require kashering. Your plates do. I know somebody who covers her table with 7 different tablecloths. Okay, everyone, I'm not taking away your customs. If you want to clean your table and then cover it, shalom aleichem. Let's talk about countertops. Do you have to cover them with anything? The answer is no. It doesn't make a difference what material they are made out of. You have to remember one thing that my wife just mentioned to you. They did not have aluminum foil back in the day. They didn't have contact paper back in the day. They didn't have. You cannot resort to 21st century methods of making your life more difficult if it didn't exist before.
You still have to clean them.
Clean, of course.
That
You
you
have to
can't
clean.
get away from.
This you cannot get away from.
Right.
So let me now deal with the splatter on the stove. Sometimes the things that drop out onto your countertop. Let's deal, and we mentioned the sink, the stuff that comes out.
Is there a quick question about countertops? So I was told a long time ago, if you take a hot pot off the stove, or out of the oven, you wouldn't put it up on the counter. You'd put it on a towel or something. Why then?
Halachically, because the person didn't know how to read Hebrew. And if they did, they didn't know how to translate it.
What would they be trying to prevent?
The flavor going through the pot into the countertop, which makes a lot of logical sense. The laws of kashrut are logical. So where am I going with this? The splatter. What did I tell you the rule is? When something, let's imagine, I take my pot from the stove and I put it on my countertop, right? What's in my pot? Give me an example.
Soup.
Soup. What kind of soup?
Chicken soup.
Chicken soup. Okay, great.
Oh, chicken soup. Okay.
You want barley soup? Because it's chametz. Barley chicken soup. Okay, let's make it worse. I stick in my ladle, and it splatters out onto the countertop. What can I do?
I'm not gonna eat from the countertop.
Are you eating what's on the countertop?
No.
Yes.
You gotta clean it.
Maybe.
You're gonna wipe it.
Okay. Let's say
Maybe I
you're
will.
tribal like my wife, and you eat from the countertop. So tell me the
I'm gonna
situation.
serve it to eat it. She just doesn't.
What might have made the piece of chicken that fell out of your pot and fell onto your counter? What might have made that chicken not kosher? Give me the example.
If the counter just had some dairy on it that was hot and also had been on the
Okay,
counter.
so now imagine this. It had to have been that 2 hours ago when I was making lasagna, right? So Esther was taking out a piece and it fell onto the counter, right?
Cheese and
And
all.
then I boiled it hot. So we cleaned it up. We didn't eat the lasagna, right? And now there's lasagna absorbed into your counter. But it's absorbed into your counter, right?
Right.
And then what happened? The
That
same
piece-
clumsy
that piece
person,
of chicken-
2 hours later, took the chicken, and that piece of chicken fell exactly on the same spot the lasagna fell out on. According to halakha, these are
miracle.
such far shot scenarios. These things are not happening that way. That you don't worry about such things. You don't worry about such things according to halakha. Especially not since the last time you probably made lasagna, you don't cook 2 hours in a row. You probably made that yesterday. 24 hours probably passed. Even if 24 hours didn't pass, there's an opinion in the Brat Anu Shulchan Aruch that the overnight already made the situation better. A number of situations that we can bring up, then in this situation there's no reason to be strict with that. That brings me to my stovetop. Stovetop, there is much more splatter than anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's obvious that your stovetop, sometimes you'll make like a tomato soup and it gets red, your stovetop, but there's nothing you can do about it. And the truth is that according to halakha, when something falls out of your pot onto the stove top, you shouldn't eat it. I see many people, the pasta falls out and they eat it. It's a mistake, especially if you're like me and you use your stovetops for meat and milk. If you have meat, a stovetop, and a dairy stovetop, that situation doesn't apply. But if you're like me, that is for meat and milk, how do I know? It fell onto a dirty part of the stove. How do I know if the dirty stuff it fell onto was meat or dairy?
Yeah, but
The
I
proper
clean it with soap.
You clean your stove every day?
Yeah.
I'm
with
not.
soap.
You like my wife, but I'm not that
Yeah?
clean.
No, I don't
Right?
know.
So,
Yeah, I do. Because
so you
there's
don't have a
soap,
problem. You don't have a problem.
so there's no
But the other person has a problem. And therefore, Pesach, though, once you're already cleaned, once you're already scrubbed, once you're already 24 hours already passed, there's no reason to reach these levels of asking it was chametz that was absorbed here, and the same time you drop, that's exactly going to be the same spot where your matzah ball fell. These are not situations in which a person must be concerned. It's for that reason that we don't worry about splatter. There's one thing in the kitchen you didn't ask me about, and it's not a toaster because you have nothing
Yeah,
to toast on
refrigerator.
Pesach.
Oh.
And it's not a refrigerator because you don't cook in your refrigerator. All you have to do with your refrigerator is
Clean
take
it.
the stuff out and clean it well. Wipe it down with the cleaning agent.
And you made a good comment. Oh, sorry.
Yes?
No, last year you made a good comment about the refrigerator to make sure if you put liners to aerate it, otherwise you spoil your food. Remember? You mentioned
Liners.
yeah. People line it. I think it was you who
People.
mentioned it. People line it with like plastic liners, and they forget to aerate it, and then
I
there's
didn't make such an announcement. No.
Okay.
So maybe it's a good public service announcement.
yeah. It's
I want to let you know that just like you don't have a separate refrigerator for meat and milk, you're aware of that in your house? You have to use your logic. That's why you don't need a separate one for chametz. You have to clean it well. And a toaster, it's not the problem. Rather, what am I talking about? What other appliances? Microwave. A microwave. How do you kasher a microwave? Marlon, you want it? You're aging that
You
I
put
just
a
want to
glass
ask a
of
question
water.
about the countertops. So if you drop a piece of food on it, you're not going to eat it because the countertop is basically not kosher.
No.
Well, what makes it
Not the
kosher?
countertop. That's the stovetop.
That
The
was the
countertop. There's a very remote chance that it will ever be not kosher. That in the same 24 hours you drop meat and milk in the same exact spot at the same temperatures. It's almost impossible to have such a scenario.
So if you drop a piece of hot food onto your countertop, you could eat it? I thought you couldn't eat it because
Yeah, of course you can.
if it falls on top of the stove, you can't eat
No,
it.
because it's dirty. It's a different. If your countertop is dirty, then also the same situation would apply. But most people's are not. This table, is it meat or milk?
It's nothing.
I had Sudan Shahid yesterday. I might have dropped something on the table.
I was told if it's hot, it falls, you just throw it away. I don't.
So every time you throw something away, the person who told you that halacha is losing more and more time in that Gan Eden.
Now, I heard that when something falls on the floor, then it's
Please don't-
chametz.
Please don't eat it if it's on the floor. Not because it's chametz.
Now what about if I put in my refrigerator, which I do, a lot of my chametz stuff.
Are you selling that stuff? You should probably close them in bags
I
and
do,
cover them
I
so
do,
you don't see them,
but
and
I
you
know,
close
but
off
it's
that
still
part
there,
of it.
it's still there.
Yeah,
It
you-
makes me feel very uncomfortable.
I know.
but
My
don't
mother
ask
has the
to
same
do
problem. So what we did recently is we have 2 refrigerators in her house. I told her one in the garage would be the chametz one. I don't know if
Yeah,
that
that's what
works
I
for
used
you.
to do when I had a
If
garage.
not, so make a shelf and then close it off. You don't.
No, that's what I do. I don't like
So what makes a stove top
it's a bad
dirty
feeling.
and the counter
Even
not
though I
dirty?
cover it and everything.
The reality that most stovetops are dirty and the temperatures that are there that are not on the counter. All right. Let's talk about the microwave.
One more question. The glass, you said that all glass is, you don't have to kosher.
Rabbi Yonatan Halevy said that today there's all kinds of new glasses. They have other
Yeah, what
ingredients
about
in
those
them.
glasses that are like, let's say, colors, like blue,
Right, so
green?
Rabbi Yonatan Halevy was strict about it, but we're not strict about it.
We're not.
So it can be
Okay,
different
so you can buy
colors.
It
different
could be all the
colors.
glasses in the world
Oh,
today.
that's
Or
good.
Corningware?
Yes, I have like,
Corningware is the famous question. Last year somebody asked me this question.
Ariel.
And Ariel asked me this question.
Yeah.
I don't remember the answer I gave him.
No, I
The
told him
truth
it was
is-
like glass because you researched what Corningware was.
Okay, I can imagine I told him it's like glass. Kashering wise. And Pyrex also is the glass. All these
I have
things are-
Pyrex.
Pirates,
For
yeah.
paste.
Yeah.
That one's good.
First Faladim, by the way, if you have glass utensils in your kitchen, you never have to have meat and milk. So. Okay. Let me, I just want to wrap up. So, one more thing. Microwaves. When you heat something up in your microwave, and you open the microwave, and you touch the wall of your microwave, how hot is the wall of your microwave?
Sometimes it's hot.
Not
but
enough to- not
not
enough to burn
500
you.
degrees, no.
And
no,
therefore,
I don't
according
have
to
microwave.
Rabbi Yitzchak Yosef, who I brought down in my book, in his Halachot Otzar Dinim L'Isha, in the Yalkut Yosef, he brings down that microwaves don't even need to be kasher. But if you want to be strict, because Pesach is a good time to be strict about kashering things, what you do is you clean out your microwave very well. Scrub it, wipe it, wash it. It's a good thing to do in general. Especially since there is splatter and there are all kinds of things in the microwave. And I'm talking about if you want to be strict, you take a cup of water and you boil the cup of water until it makes steam in the microwave. 2 minutes, that's about what it takes to make some steam, and you kashered your microwave for Pesach.
Can you do the same thing when you're in a hotel?
Yes,
How
absolutely.
do you kosher? You put a-
You clean it, and if you want to be strict, you boil a cup of water in it. Which I tell you is not necessary, but for Pesach it's a good stringency to have.
So you mean that if you're in an office with a bunch of people and they're bringing all their tray food and then all you have to do is come and
Clean it out and boil a
boil
cup
water
of
and then
water.
you can put your kosher food and
Absolutely.
you'll be good.
Absolutely.
So a microwave can be meat or milk?
Yeah,
Wow.
sure. You should preferably cover one or the other, meaning all the
It's
meat
so
dishes you
easy.
cover, all the dairy dishes you cover. That way, the splatter in the microwave is only either meat or dairy, not both
Yeah.
together.
I cover everything.
According to halakha, our halakha, at least steam does not make something meat or milk, but splattered does.
Which is
Ashkenazim are stricter than us, and they say that even the steam makes something meat or milk. But there are enough ways around this halakha that I'm not so concerned
Would
about.
we
believe
cook-
that by Ashkenazim microwaves are never used on Pesach.
Right.
I can imagine. Right.
Yeah.
would we
Um,
use an oven for both meat and dairy at the same time with both open foods then? If steam is not a problem?
There are ways to do it. Practically, you have to know the halachot.
Okay.
There are ways to do it, but it's done. We normally make meat and then dairy.
Right.
Right. Anything else on this list that I said I was going to cover that I did not cover?
Well, in terms of the refrigerator, I'm doing the opposite because I'm in
This
somebody
is my
else's
pen here.
house.
Could be your pen. Other way.
I'm closing off the normal refrigerator.
I'm just checking my list
I'm
of
gonna
topics.
take
Yes.
this back.
I'm closing off the
You can
normal
write that one.
refrigerator. I'm taking the one in the garage, which is relatively clean.
Oh my.
And I can use that as the refrigerator. Because I see the
This is-
refrigerator,
this
even
hers.
though it's cold,
There's
as problematic only because the way refrigerators are used today, the crevices and the amount of stuff that's really in the places. There are many places in a refrigerator to get and you open the door.
This is a.
But what are the chances that you're going to eat the food that fell into the crevices?
Again, al pi halacha, what could be done, the easiest thing could be done would be to take a rag with bleach or something, run
And
over
run
it,
down,
wind the
right.
shelf.
Correct. And one thing I didn't mention: milk, eggs, these kind of things. You know my opinion about halal Israel. It's not important to reiterate it now. But milk and eggs and such things. Many have a custom to buy all of these things before Pesach. It's an old Ashkenazi custom to do that. You shouldn't buy the camera. Milk and eggs on Pesach. You're allowed to buy them. You're allowed to buy them on Pesach. You're not worried about the cow eating chametz or the eggs having chametz on them, or unless it's Marlene's eggs, you have to look into that, right? But we're not worried about these halachot. You don't have to stock up on milk and eggs before Pesach. You can buy them freely throughout Pesach. Your milk and eggs do not have to have any special Pesach certification. People say maybe the cow ate chametz, and maybe the cow ate worms. I don't know. The whole year it eats bugs, so you're not. It's a certain thing that Chacham Yosef brings down. The Birkei Yosef, Rabbi Chaim Yosef David Azulai, who says that a posek who is stricter than Maran, Rabbi Yosef Karo, especially for Sfaradim, on Pesach, is going to have to pray hard on Yom Kippur to ask for forgiveness for that. So we don't have such a custom. If you do have a custom, Shalom Aleichem, do what you wish to do. Any plain ingredients, sugar, salts, all these things are okay for Pesach. Any questions that you have, you're more than welcome to reach out to me, to text me, to email me, to post them on our Facebook group. We'll be doing these Costco tour, Trader Joe's tour. Tuesday night at 7 p.m. is the Trader Joe's tour.
Tuesday night?
Yeah, Thursday night at 7 p.m. is the Costco tour. I have those lists for whoever comes on the tour with us. If not, you're free to ask questions.
I'm incorrect.
These books are for sale through Marlene if
I've
you'd like
got
to get
one,
one.
and I'm gonna.
And if there are any
tonight.
questions that want to be asked, I'm more than happy. Can we just stop the recording and start it again?
Where do you want to
I'm
put it?
incorrect about a microwave. Rav Shimon Eider makris for Ashkenazim to kasher a microwave on Pesach.
Yeah, they do, but by
Shimon
doing
Eider,
that, what?
liquid.
Turn it on?
Now turn it back on.
No, it's back. It's on. It's
was
on.
What did you say?
I'm incorrect about a microwave. Rav Shimon Eider, who's not from the lenient people, he's from Lakewood. He wrote a definitive guide on Pesach for Ashkenazim many years ago. He says a microwave may be kashed from Pesach.
That's
I'm
the
gonna say this
practical
way. Really?
halacha here. Anything else that I didn't
Thank you
cover
for
that you
sharing
want to
that.
ask?
I wanted to ask about gluten. They have all these gluten-free crackers and stuff. Do you use
Many gluten-free things have rice, corn. If you eat those things on Pesach, it's okay. The only thing you have to be careful of, oats. Oat is sometimes gluten-free because it hasn't been contaminated with gluten. And then for many gluten things, this is important here, many gluten-free things have oats in them. And so you have to make sure just because it's gluten-free does not mean it's kosher for Pesach. You have to make sure the ingredients are just kidneyot and not actually chametz. Okay, there are all kinds of ways they're removing gluten from things that do have gluten. For example, you can go to the store and get oat granola that's gluten-free. Doesn't make it kosher for Pesach. Though there are poskim who say that oats are not chametz. We don't follow those poskim, but there are such poskim. What I do suggest that if you have a gluten-free, that's your what you eat the whole year, please don't use oat matzot for Pesach. They're better to use any other kind of matzah except for oats. That's all I can ask.
What time is the tour?
7.
7, okay. What
Turn it
about
off.
vodka?
Very good. Vodka? No, we leave it on for the questions. I just wanted to separate the questions. Vodka depends.
Oh wait,
Potato.
no, it's still running on the same.
That's what I asked for. To be turned off and then
Okay.
turned on again.
Okay.
You want to turn off
No,
now?
leave it.
What's
Now we'll
wrong
leave
with
it.
those matzos?
Vodka.
Vodka, I don't know what it's made out of. I don't drink
Potatoes.
alcohol.
Potato.
Is it?
I'm sure
Not
there are
all
vodkas that
vodka
are made
is.
out of grains.
Some vodkas are made out of grain.
I have a list of
but many
approved-
vodkas are made out of potatoes.
I don't have it with me. I have a list of approved alcoholic beverages for Pesach. If you like one, I could share it with you.
Well, I know Kosher Ralph's sells vodka, and it's really expensive.
No, there are ones that are kosher without a special
Mm-hmm.
hechsher. Actually, if anyone's interested, I just allowed a certain product. It's a rice.
It says that, right?
One second, I'll tell you.
Kuioi.
It's at. Let me just give me one moment. I'll find it for you. It's at.
Oh, look, it came up on my Facebook. Oh, I put it in there too, and it came up. Let's see if the Thursday one is there.
I can't find it. There's a kikori something. It's some kind of rice whiskey or vodka that
Oh.
at Costco. I'll point it out on my tour.
Okay, I'll
It's
buy
good,
It.
especially for Sfardim. It's okay for Pesach. I reached out to the company from Japan. It's good for Pesach
What
for
is
us.
it? It's
It's an alcoholic beverage made out of rice and water. It's fermented with koji algae.
it's not what the Japanese.
It's a Japanese. It's an alcoholic beverage that Japanese drink.
Sake, isn't that?
They call it kikori or something like that. I can't
Except
find
for
it.
the radioactivity from Japan, it'll be fine.
I can't find it. Aside. Oh, here it is. It's called kikori whiskey.
Kikori whiskey.
Product of
spell that?
Japan. Kikori.
There are two very good coolers here from Rosh Shiva Rav Scheinberg, who was one of the greatest halakhic Ashkenazi experts in the generation, my Rosh Shiva. He says, first of all, not like you, easier than you, on marble and stainless steel countertops. He says, if they were used for hot chametz, they should be cleaned well. They should either be completely covered so that nothing Pesach touches them, or if it will not ruin the countertops, which is very unique. He says only if it will not ruin the countertops, pour boiling water on them easily.
I was more lenient than him.
No, you said Irui. He says he don't
I don't
need
know, I
Irui
said
if it
no,
won't
no.
ruin them.
I said you just have to wipe them clean.
Oh, okay. Well, he says
No boiling
he says
necessary.
that if it will not ruin them, it's better, but you could wipe them with bleach or something clean. And the other thing he says is by yeah, okay.
Okay. What do you want to ask?
I was going to ask for my cat food later.
Oh, your cat food. Make sure that the food you feed your pets don't have chametz
You
in
could
it.
share with them.
Okay, is
I'm
that
sure
here's the
somebody will
cat food?
benefit, yeah.
Let me.
Because
Well, this is
it
grain
can't,
free, but
it can't be around. You can't be around it, even though you're not going to eat it, right?
Well,
Right, because there are two prohibitions. Well, three. It's one you cannot
He
eat,
says
the other one
same
you
thing
cannot
on
see, the other one
tabletops,
you
that's the
cannot
other
have
one.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin,
in your jurisdiction.
It's good for Pesach.
thank you.
He says the same thing on tabletops. He does
Sorry.
not
Got it?
even suggest Irui Klirishan on tabletops. He only says
I gotta
wash
go.
them with a household cleaner.
Okay,
and
there you
cover
go.
them.
All right, any other questions? We're good.
No,
Everyone,
this was
tomorrow
great.
night we have a kollel class here, and we'll be going through the laws of the seder. If you want to know
Oh.
about matzah, all those things, I'm opening up to men and women. That's tomorrow night at 8:30 till
8:30.
9:50.
Okay, 9:50.
All the best.
Okay, is there